In today's video, this is going to be a discussion, my opinions of the common issue that always goes around: which system's better? Is it Windows, Mac, Linux? So just watch this video to find out what my opinions are of all the three systems. Hello YouTube viewers, Belchi94 here again today with a debate or a topic, or what you could say the OS wars of over which one's supreme than the other. So we've got your Windows, your Mac, your Linux, they versus each other. What's the difference between the three? What makes them so good? What makes them stand out to the others? I'm going to just tell you the truth. I'm a bit of an Apple fanboy. Yes, I love Apple products. I love using Mac, but Linux, Windows, and Mac, they've got their own features that they're good at, and they've got some limitations that are not that good. So each OS has its benefits and their limitations, or not so good features, if you want to say that. So Mac and Windows are about they're old, at least almost 30 years old, especially since Microsoft was a part of DOS, and I'm pretty sure Mac was on some sort of... I wasn't sure about the Mac system of how it works. I know OS 10 went to Unix, which is the same ecosystem as Linux, the kernel that they've built off. So let's talk about the main one. Sorry about that, guys. That's my phone and my iPad going off. I'll just do that so it doesn't go off again. That's going to be another video for another discussion. Is phone devices. So you got your Windows phone and Google, or Android, and iOS. iOS and Android are pretty much built for the same kernel. I'm not sure what kernel the Windows phone is, but it could be off and the same sort of file system as NTFS, or I'm pretty sure Windows 8 might be built on a new file, might have built on part of a new file system, but it is compatible with NTFS, which was brought in Windows 2000. So the common used by everyone around the world is Microsoft Windows, because you can get them on computers that are pretty cheap now these days. Everyone uses it business-wise, because that's usually the sort of places that Microsoft target are usually the corporate-wise business, because they're cheap and that's where they'll make the money, because they've got their systems do have a pretty long support cycle of 10 years roughly now, which their longest supporting system at the moment currently got drop supported back in April as Windows XP, which there's still a fair bit of users in the world that still use that system. It's a pretty reliable OS. I've used it. Probably my second OS that I've used, because my first computer that I ever had Windows 95 on it, which was a laptop, and then my second laptop had Windows XP, and that was a fairly solid system too. I have nothing against XP, but it's probably got to the point now. It's about almost 15 years old, or not 15 yet, a bit off. It's probably about 13 years old now. No, it wouldn't be. Yeah, 13 years old now. So it's been out for that long. It's a very solid system, very reliable, but it's completely built off Windows 2000, which was designed for servers and corporate, like for businesses. So it's not fancy. Windows XP brought in theme support and etc. etc. We can talk about all Windows versions in another video. Don't want to go. But yes, Windows is commonly used because there's a lot of software for the system. Everyone's familiar with using it because it's used, like I said before, in businesses and etc. etc. And they're fairly cheap. You can get them for under $300 now, around $300 to $400 now. It's just for a cheap basic desktop PC or a laptop. So, yeah. People use Windows for gaming, which people like to build their custom PC just to play Windows games. But they also build it. You can build them for Linux systems as well, which is another fairly common thing. But Windows is good for games. I find they're pretty good for the server operating systems are pretty good too. I found because I'm not gonna lie, I have Mac, yes, but I still use a Windows system. Sort of getting into the Linux thing, but I still haven't completely gone into it yet. I haven't played around with. Sorry about that, guys. There's been a fair few of them today, the ambulances and different sirens. But yeah, I haven't been really much into the Linux ecosystem because I haven't really had to play with all their systems. I've had to play with a couple like Ubuntu, which is a common one. Which I like Ubuntu because it's sort of built off. Sort of reminds me of it sort of looks like a bit of a Mac interface, but it doesn't like. But it's not Mac, obviously. And I've used the Jolly OS, which is good for like. It's a really good system to use on old netbooks, as it's like sort of almost tablet based, but it isn't. It doesn't sort of look like a tablet sort of thing. It uses web apps, the same as the Google Chromebook, which they're fairly cheap too, which is also a Linux system, or built off the same Unix kernel. So let's talk. Well, I'll tell you the key points of Windows, which I find are good to use for servers. You got long support with the system. Plenty of software, so it's got a lot of software, and gamers will love it because it supports all the games. Is there any more? And there's always a lot of support for the Microsoft Windows systems, as you know. The issue I have with Windows, virus. Because it's a commonly used system, it gets a lot of viruses. But there's always ways to prevent that with the antivirus protection software. And I found that Windows machines, even though they're cheap up front, they can cost money in the long run if you don't maintain them and be careful of what you go on, or if you don't have the right software like antivirus and stuff like that. You can get big virus attacks, and you're gonna have to spend more money getting it repaired and getting it like fixed or whatever you want to, But one great positive thing about the desktop PCs that Microsoft and Linux use, they're upgradable too. So that's a good point for them. But yeah, see, it's not a bad system at all. I've used Windows since I was for a long time. So I've used it for school. I've used Mac through school as well. So I'm starting to get into the Linux and start using it because I've only learnt about it a few years ago, I'll be honest. And I find that software on a Windows can cost more over long periods of time as you pay it off, especially with antivirus software. I find that you got to pay it off for because sometimes it's in yearly subscriptions and all that. I find that Windows slows down, like when you put a lot of clutter on the computer, it tends to slow down a bit more than the other, like a Linux or a Windows-based system. So it's got its downfalls there, but it's still a good. Windows do make good systems when they want to be, when they don't like to shove them out the door like they did with Windows ME. Or I haven't really used Vista, so I can't comment if it's a really bad system or not. Usually people will probably say in the description. I've used Windows XP 7, 8. I really enjoy 8. I know it looks different, but it runs really well on old hardware. So I find it's a good system. I haven't had any issues with it. Windows ME, I don't want to talk about that. That's just, I installed ME and it froze for the installation and would not install again. And it just kept freezing at this point for the installation. Windows 98, well, it wasn't a bad system. I just find it was issues installing driver support. I found. Same with Windows 95. That was a good system too. It was good. So Windows, I find, I got a computer here running Windows 2000 next to me, which I'm using to play vintage games pretty much. I tried installing Windows 98 on it so I can get the DOS games going, which didn't turn out that well because the computer was a little bit too new and the drivers sort of weren't running properly in Windows 98. Runs fine with Windows 2000, and I've got my server computer that I use running Windows Server 2003, which is a good OS, which is built off XP, which is pretty much XP sort of system with the server features in it. Yeah, and I'm using and I've got a few netbooks with Windows 8.1 on there. Now, I'll recommend you to use Windows if you're going to play games or if like business wise, because it's yeah. Or if you're just looking for a cheap computer, just for now, that you don't have much money to get like a Mac or something, go Windows. There's plenty of free software that you can use. Like there's plenty of free software on Macs, but or on Windows. I mean, sorry guys, but yeah. So I'll be back in a second. I just got a text message. Just have to reply to it. Something very important, and I'll continue back with the video. Sorry about that, guys. Just had a text message from my mother, which was fairly important. So just replied to it. And here. So now we'll talk about the Mac Mac system. I've been using Macs for a few years. I haven't had any issues with it. Like, not with. I find it's a very solid system. You don't need to have virus protection on there, which is good. Which is a good point. So you don't have to worry about spending the money on that. I find their software's fairly cheap, and it's pretty good. So there's alternatives out there you can get Microsoft Office on the Mac on the Mac, which is not too bad. But there's plenty better alternatives out there like you've got Pages, Numbers, Keynote. You can even use a Linux-based open source programs like OpenOffice, LibreOffice, and there's probably a ton more out there. I find Mac is good for movie editing, so if you're into movie editing or like animation, this is a good sort of good operating system to use. It's very reliable. I find it very reliable, very quick. It's very quick and responsive. Yeah, and it has a nice, I find it's an easy to use interface or easy to use for people that are not tech savvy. Yeah, it's a bit different to Microsoft Windows with the look. Sorry about that. That's what Darth Vader text message tone. And yeah, I love my Mac. It's good. It's good for movie editing. It's quick, and I can tell you, if you look, you'll get a long life out of it. You'll get a long life out of these machines. They're very good, solid machines. But the Mac does have downfalls. Even though I'm a Mac fan, it has downfalls, down point issues with it. The price range, it can be a bit expensive. Like for people that want to buy a decent PC, if you really want to build your own, you can probably build your own with a Windows or Linux operating system on there. Upgrading memory or hard drive, etc., getting into the computer is a bit of an issue, especially because if it's on warranty, you can stuff up your warranty if you open up the Mac, whatnot. Unless you got a Mac like a Mac Cert Pro from anywhere from up to late 2012, it'd be fairly easy to upgrade those machines. But now it's a bit hard with all the built-in components now that they use. Now it's all soldered into the motherboard, so it's a bit of an issue now. But yeah, I find that Mac is a good system to use if Mac has been out for a long time. Mac have released the first GUI or graphical interface. And please, people, comment if I'm wrong. Happy to admit I'm wrong, but this is just from sources that I've sort of that I've learned and discovered. But I could be wrong. Happy to learn. I'm into technology. Happy to learn different things and admit that if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You just gotta. You can never be right, like with everything. And I haven't really had any issues with my Mac. I've had them for about 2 years, or almost up to 2 years. Still running as fast as the day I got it out of the box. While iMac does tend to slow down when I'm doing high intensity movie editing because it's only got 8 gig of RAM in there, but I'm going to probably upgrade to 16 or 32 in the future. But at the moment, I don't have the funds or the money to upgrade the RAM at the moment. It's not a thing to really. I'm not that worried about. But yeah, and this new Yosemite system I've got on there is really good at communicating with my phone, my iOS devices pretty well, and yeah, and the systems are free. Like to upgrade to like a major release now, they're free. So I believe if you're running say 10.68, you can upgrade to the newer system, which is Yosemite, which they made it free when they released Mavericks last year, 10.9, which it wasn't a bad system, just improvements with Mountain Lion, which really weren't that much different. But with Yosemite, it's a bit of a design change. And who would I recommend to use this system? I find non-tech savvy people, I'd recommend to use it. People that are into animation, photoshopping, movie editing, stuff like that, I'd recommend you use this machine. People are going to probably disagree with me and say, oh, you can use Windows, there's plenty of software out there. But Mac comes with really good software, like movie editing software like iMovie. Windows Movie Maker, I'll admit, is crap, if you ask me. You can't do much in it. It's pretty much just, you can do photo slideshows. I find that's how useful it is. And it's probably better just to even use PowerPoint, if you ask me. But you probably disagree with me. There's good software out there that you can use to get for Windows. You can get Sony Vegas. There's like Adobe Premiere, After Effects. That's a good editing software. I find the good utilities to use for movie editing is you can get Premiere on the Mac as well, iMovie, or even Final Cut Pro, which I would use as Final Cut Pro because it's fairly easy to use and it does a fairly good job. Which is I use to make this intro that I've uploaded, which I'll admit isn't that good, but I'm just in a learning stage of playing around with it and see how it goes. I can always improve it later. So that's Mac for you. That's like my review on how I see the systems. And the Linux system is, which I'm not that good at using. I don't know a lot about Linux. I know it's open source. It's free. You can you can do your own modifications to the source code. So and the good thing about these Linux operating system is they're very efficient. So you can run it on old hardware. So your old PC. There's plenty of different systems that you can use to replace if you don't want to upgrade to a new Microsoft Windows system because of the price. It is a bit of a hefty price just for an upgrade on Windows. It's a bit ridiculous. You can even upgrade to there's a whole range of Linux systems that you probably like to suit you. One of my major favorites is Ubuntu, because it sort of looks like a Mac OS and it's fairly easy and it's fairly smooth and it's probably one of the ones that have the longest support. I think Mint does long-term support too. I'm not sure, but tell me if I'm right or wrong, and comment any other Linux systems that have long support and that I don't know about, because I'm happy to learn. And I've used another Linux system called Jelly OS, which is a very good system. It's sort of like a system where all your applications are pretty much web-based, so you just use it for a web browser, pretty much. Sort of like a phone, like iOS or Android, pretty much. More like an Android sort of thing, because it's built off the Unix kernel, same as Mac, iOS, Android, etc. And it's fairly good if you're into programming too. If you're a bit of a programmer, you can play around with the system, like have a go learning the program, especially JavaScript and HTML, which is probably a good way to start. Even you can do the Python, because I'm pretty sure in Australia we do a thing, especially when you're doing a computing class, especially around year 11, you can do a thing called a challenge. It's just like a sort of like a challenge sort of thing. It's called the Python Challenge, which is run by a university in Sydney. yeah, and they'll ask you to make sort of some different apps and stuff, which is pretty much like a command. I made this game in Python, which is sort of like a command line sort of thing, where it's like a trivia game. Yeah, it pops up these questions, and you answer A, B, or C. If it's correct, you go on to the next question, and if it's say wrong, it'll ask you to restart, and the questions sort of shuffle themselves around, sort of thing. And well, I'll get into, because I'm probably dragging on this video way too long. Probably it's going to be about 20 minutes or so. And probably bored the hell out of ears. So, good points about Linux. Step one. It's free. It's open source, so you can modify it. But if you do modify it and you upload it up to the internet, you can't charge money for it, and you have to upload the source code with it. I believe that's one of their policies with open source software. Great if you have an old computer and you don't want to pay it and it can't run any like newer versions of Windows or Mac OS. That's a good thing about Linux. It's compatible with both systems. So especially if you've got like an old like PowerPC Mac, it'll run great on there. I'm not sure about driver wise, but yeah, it'll run on PowerPCs, Intel, AMD. I'm not sure there's any other processors that I know of, but yeah, that's sort of a good points. Great for, you can even use this for sort of basic animation and etc. as well. Great for programming but the only downfall, I find the major downfall it doesn't have any of the major programs like Microsoft Office and all that, but there's a lot of alternative open source programs out there. OpenOffice, like I said before, LibreOffice. There's plenty of other programs probably to do video editing. If you wanted to ever use it for a video editing machine, you can always build your own custom computer to run. So it's pretty much compatible with a lot of hardware that I find, that's a good thing. And it's free, and you can't complain about a free OS, can you really? And I haven't had any issues with the Linux experience except correct driver support. That's about it. But I'm getting the hang of it. And the great thing is they run very well at doing multi-boots, especially with Microsoft Windows. Because I remember one of my netbooks had Windows on it, and you download this, especially if you want to. I'd put running alongside Ubuntu, and the great thing about it is it's called Wibi. It's spelled WIBI. I believe that's what I believe that's how. I could be wrong how I pronounce it. Please tell me in the description. What it does is it does the whole installation and setup progress in the Windows environment. So you could be doing something, just searching the net, so just chilling on the net, like doing something on the computer while it's installing your Ubuntu system in the background. Sets up, you'll ask you to restart, log in, etc. Sort of customize it how you want. And if you ever find you ever got enough space and you want to delete the system, you can always just delete it from the control panel in the Windows environment. So yeah, and Mac, you can run Windows alongside Mac with Boot Camp on a Mac system. And there's also different versions of Mac where it's called Hackintosh, which you can run on like PCs, which I reckon pretty much these days you can probably run a Mac on a PC because it's especially on Intel base. I'm not sure about AMD, but no, Intel machines you probably could run a version of Mac, like a Mac system on there. So hopefully I haven't bored you too much, and hopefully you sort of understand where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to be biased or anything. I'm trying to tell you that each operating system have their good and their bad points, if you know what I mean. And I'm happy to admit I'm a Mac fanboy, but hopefully I wasn't being too biased or biased at all. So I just want to say, subscribe to my channel, and later on, maybe sometime in the near future, I'll do a review against the iOS, Android, and Windows phone, which I've never used in my life. So I can see how that goes and recommend which one's best for you without being biased, of course. So subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. Hopefully to see your good comments about this below. Have a great day.